Sometimes, the most unforgettable moments arrive when you least expect them. For Nia Johnson, today was supposed to be ordinary, a routine visit to a new art gallery downtown. She had her schedule planned to the minute: review the exhibits, take notes for her curation report, and leave without distraction. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. As she stepped into the gallery, her eyes scanned the abstract canvases, each brushstroke stirring her imagination. Lost in thought, she barely noticed the tall figure approaching from the opposite direction until, crash! Her folder of papers slipped from her hands, scattering across the polished floor. "I'm so sorry," a deep, calm voice said as strong hands quickly helped her gather the fallen sheets. Nia looked up and found herself staring into the dark, thoughtful eyes of a man whose presence seemed to fill the entire room. He had a quiet intensity, the kind that made her pulse skip, though she tried to remain composed. "I should have been paying attention," Nia said, cheeks warming. "No harm done," he replied with a small, polite smile, returning the papers to her. "I'm Ethan. Ethan Kim." There was something magnetic about the way he spoke, unassuming yet deliberate, as if every word carried weight. Nia introduced herself, and for a moment time seemed to bend around them, the bustling gallery fading into a quiet bubble that belonged only to the two of them. Before parting ways, Ethan offered a simple gesture, an unassuming hug. It lasted long enough to feel significant, a fleeting touch that left Nia's heart racing with curiosity and wonder. She didn't know it yet, but this brief encounter would mark the beginning of a story neither of them could have predicted. Life has a way of nudging people toward moments they never imagined, and for Nia, that nudge came in the form of an envelope. It arrived at her office the very next day, sleek and understated, marked only with her name in elegant script. Inside was an invitation to a charity gala, a glittering affair she would never normally attend. Curiosity won over hesitation. She remembered the man from the gallery, Ethan Kim, and something about the envelope made her wonder if it had been intended for her, a subtle invitation to cross paths once more. She debated ignoring it, convincing herself she had better things to do, yet the pull of the unknown lingered. That evening, Nia stepped into the grand ballroom, the soft glow of chandeliers casting a warm light over elegantly dressed guests. She felt like an intruder among the carefully polished crowd, but the moment she spotted him, all doubts melted. Ethan stood across the room, looking effortless in a tailored suit, scanning the room with that same quiet intensity that had captivated her the day before. Their eyes met, and he made his way toward her with a measured confidence, as if each step was intentional. "Nia," he said softly, offering a smile that tugged at something deep inside her. They talked, first about trivial things, the artwork at the gala, the music playing softly in the background, but gradually their conversation deepened, revealing shared interests and a surprising ease in one another's presence. As the evening wound down, Ethan extended his hand in farewell, then hesitated. "May I?" he asked, and when Nia nodded, he pulled her into a gentle hug. It was brief, but it carried warmth, a silent promise of something more, leaving Nia's mind and heart lingering long after he walked away. Sometimes life has a way of weaving threads that seem random, yet are anything but. For Nia, the next encounter with Ethan came sooner than she expected. Her art exhibit was opening that evening, a modest but personal display of pieces she had poured months of effort into. She was preoccupied, adjusting frames and checking lighting, when she heard a calm voice behind her. "I didn't think I'd be lucky enough to see this," Ethan said, his eyes scanning the collection with genuine interest. Nia turned, startled, and smiled, caught somewhere between surprise and pleasure. "I didn't expect anyone from last night to show up," she admitted, trying to maintain composure, though her heart had a mind of its own. Ethan's gaze lingered on a painting of a quiet park at dusk. "There's something about this one," he said. "It feels peaceful, like it's telling a story only some people can hear." They wandered through the exhibit together, sharing observations and anecdotes. With every word, Nia discovered layers of Ethan she hadn't noticed before. A thoughtfulness, a subtle humor, and a patience that seemed to mirror her own. Conversation flowed as if they had known each other for years, and for the first time in a long while, Nia felt fully understood. At the end of the evening, Ethan reached out instinctively, pulling her into a warm hug. It was brief, yet lingered in a way that spoke of unspoken trust and gentle comfort. Nia rested her head against his shoulder for a heartbeat, savoring the quiet reassurance that someone could truly see her beyond the surface. As he stepped back, their eyes met, and in that silent exchange they both understood. This was no fleeting encounter. Something significant had begun, something neither of them would be able to ignore. Love often blooms in the most unexpected spaces, But life has a way of reminding us that every rose has thorns. For Nia, the growing closeness with Ethan had been effortless, yet there was a shadow she couldn't quite name. Ethan was kind, attentive, and considerate, but sometimes, a flicker of distraction crossed his face, as if he carried a burden too heavy to share. It started subtly. He would glance at his phone during their dinners, his smiles tinged with thoughtfulness that didn't reach his eyes. Nia noticed, though she didn't pry. Her instincts told her that some doors only open when the person is ready. Still, curiosity gnawed at her, and she began to wonder what secrets lay behind that calm, commanding exterior. One evening, after a quiet walk through the city park, Ethan paused and looked down at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. "Nia, there are things about my life you don't know," he said softly. "Things I'm not proud of and things that could put you in danger." Nia's chest tightened. She wanted to protest, to reassure him that she could handle anything, yet his tone carried a gravity she couldn't ignore. Instead, she reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "I trust you, Ethan. Whatever it is, I want to know the real you." For a long moment, they stood in silence, hand in hand, the cool night breeze brushing past them. Then, instinctively, they leaned into a comforting hug, letting the warmth and closeness speak for what words could not. In that embrace, Nia felt both the weight of his secrets and the sincerity of his care, a fragile balance that only deepened her feelings. Little did she know, the truths Ethan held would soon test everything they were building, and force them both to choose between fear and love. Some feelings are too big to contain, and for Ethan, the weight of his emotions was becoming impossible to hide. Every time he saw Nia laugh, every time she spoke with quiet conviction about her dreams, he felt a pull that went beyond admiration. Something deeper, something terrifyingly sincere. One evening they met at a small cafe, away from the noise of the city. Nia sat across from him, her eyes warm and expectant, sensing that something had shifted. Ethan hesitated, stirring his coffee more than necessary, gathering courage. "Nia, there's something I need to say," he began, voice low, almost fragile. "I care about you. More than I probably should, considering my life." He trailed off, searching her face for a sign of fear or judgment. Nia leaned forward slightly, resting her chin on her hand. "Ethan, you don't have to explain everything right now. I care about you too. And I don't need all the answers, not yet." His chest tightened. Here was someone who saw him, not just the surface, not just the charisma or the shadows, but the person behind it all. Relief and longing mingled in a way that made words feel unnecessary. Without thinking, they moved closer, and Ethan wrapped his arms around her in a gentle, lingering hug. Nia rested her head against his shoulder, letting herself absorb the comfort, the honesty, the quiet declaration of feelings that didn't need to be shouted. For a moment, the world outside the cafe vanished. There was only the warmth of shared trust, the slow realization that they were beginning to fall for each other in ways neither could ignore. And though uncertainties remained, this embrace became a promise, a small yet profound step toward the love that was waiting for them. Sometimes love moves quietly, like a current that suddenly sweeps you off your feet when you least expect it. For Ethan, the moment to make his feelings undeniable had arrived. He had spent weeks planning, not a flashy spectacle, but something intimate, something that reflected the sincerity of his heart. He invited Nia to a secluded rooftop garden overlooking the city skyline, a place where soft lights hung like stars and the air carried a gentle evening breeze. Nia arrived, curiosity mingling with excitement, noticing how every detail, the flowers, the subtle music, seemed to mirror her personality. Ethan took her hand, his usual calm demeanor softened by nerves. "Nia, from the moment we met, I felt something I can't ignore," he began. "You've shown me patience, trust, and kindness in ways I never thought I deserved. I don't want a life without you in it." Nia's breath caught. Her heart raced, emotions overwhelming her in the quiet intimacy of the rooftop. He knelt, holding a small box in his hands. "I'm asking you to be my partner, my equal, my forever. Will you marry me?" Tears of happiness glistened in Nia's eyes as she nodded, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Yes, yes, Ethan." He slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a long, heartfelt hug. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic proclamations. It was the warmth of two people trusting one another completely. As they held each other against the backdrop of the glowing city lights, the world seemed to shrink until there was nothing but them. In that embrace, promises were made silently, hearts intertwined, and a future was imagined, a future neither had dared dream of until this moment. Happiness rarely arrives without complications. As Nia and Ethan immersed themselves in the whirlwind of wedding preparations, The excitement of their upcoming day was tinged with subtle unease. There were countless details to manage: the guest list, the venue, the flowers, but Ethan carried another weight, one he couldn't share. Nia noticed his occasional silence, the way he would drift into thought mid-conversation. She wanted to ask, to reassure him that he didn't have to shoulder everything alone, but she trusted him enough to let him open up in his own time. One afternoon, while reviewing seating arrangements, Ethan paused, his gaze distant. "Nia," he said softly, "there are things from my past, people I've dealt with that might cause trouble. I don't want you to worry, but I need to be honest." Nia reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "Ethan, whatever comes, we face it together. I'm not going anywhere." The tension eased slightly, replaced by the quiet intimacy that had grown between them over months of trust and shared moments. Later, as the sun dipped low, they took a break and walked through the nearby garden, letting the soft evening light wash over them. At a secluded spot, Ethan pulled Nia into a long, protective hug. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that reassured her more than words ever could. "We'll get through this," he whispered, and she nodded, knowing that no matter what challenges loomed, their bond was strong enough to weather them. In that embrace, worries melted, replaced by hope and determination. The wedding day was approaching, and with it, the promise of forever. But first, they had to navigate the delicate threads of trust, secrets, and love that had brought them this far. The morning of the wedding arrived with a soft golden light, promising new beginnings. Nia woke with a mixture of excitement and nerves, the reality of the day settling over her like a warm embrace. Every detail of the ceremony reflected months of care. The flowers she had carefully chosen, the music that reminded them both of shared moments, and the quiet anticipation that hung in the air. Ethan, meanwhile, prepared in solitude, battling a familiar tension. Despite the celebratory atmosphere, he could not entirely shake the weight of his secrets, the life he had lived and the danger it might bring. But today, he decided, would be about love, trust, and the promise of a future together. When Nia stepped into the venue, the room seemed to pause. Ethan's eyes met hers, and in that instant, all fear and distraction vanished. She walked toward him with a graceful certainty, her heart echoing the rhythm of his. The ceremony was simple, heartfelt, and intimate. Vows were exchanged not as empty words, but as promises steeped in honesty, hope, and devotion. When Ethan took her hands in his touch carried reassurance, a silent pledge that he would protect and cherish her for all the days to come. As the officiant pronounced them married, Ethan pulled Nia into a long, tender hug, their hearts beating in unison. She felt the depth of his commitment, the quiet strength that had drawn her to him from the start. In that embrace, they were not just a bride and groom, they were two souls who had chosen each other despite shadows and uncertainties, ready to face life together. And as the room filled with applause, Nia realized that love in its truest form was not about perfection, but about trust, courage, and the willingness to embrace forever, hand in hand. The day had been everything they had dreamed of, filled with laughter, tears of joy, and countless moments that would become memories. Yet, as evening settled over the city, a quiet tension hovered in the suite they now shared as husband and wife. Ethan stood by the window, looking out at the skyline, shadows of his other life pressing against the warmth of the day. Nia watched him, sensing the familiar unease in his posture. "Ethan, are you all right?" she asked softly. He turned to her, masking the weight he carried with a calm smile. "I'm fine," he said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. I want tonight to be perfect for you. I promise to be gentle." Nia smiled, not fully understanding the layers beneath his words, yet trusting the man she had chosen. She stepped closer, allowing herself to rest against him in a long, heartfelt hug. In that embrace, the world outside, his past, the dangers, the secrets, felt distant. For a moment, there was only them, only the quiet certainty of love and trust. Ethan held her with careful deliberation, as if every movement was an unspoken promise to protect her, to shield her from anything that could harm the life they were beginning together. Nia's heart swelled, sensing both vulnerability and strength in him, a duality that had fascinated her since the day they met. In that silent exchange, the truth of their bond was clear. Ethan's words may have been a half-truth, but the intention behind them was pure, to make her feel safe, cherished, and loved. As the night deepened, they stayed wrapped in each other's arms, letting the warmth of their embrace speak louder than any lie or fear. And in that quiet, unbroken moment, they both understood. Love was not about perfection. It was about the courage to hold on, even when shadows lingered. Dawn broke softly over the city, casting golden light across the room where Nia and Ethan lay wrapped in each other's arms. The night's quiet tension had passed, replaced by the warmth of shared trust and the knowledge that they had chosen each other, fully and without hesitation. Ethan traced gentle patterns on Nia's hand, silently promising that the past, with all its shadows and complications, would not define their future. "I'm done hiding from you," he whispered. "From now on it's us, nothing more, nothing less." Nia smiled, resting her head against his chest. She could feel the steadiness of his heartbeat, a rhythm that had carried them through uncertainty and doubt. "Together," she replied softly. "Always together." They spent the morning wrapped in quiet conversation, laughter, and shared plans, imagining a life where love was the constant and fear had no place. The outside world could wait. This moment was theirs, sacred and unshakable. Later, as they stepped onto the balcony, the city stretching endlessly before them, Nia and Ethan held each other close, letting the breeze carry away the last remnants of worry. The life they had built together was no longer a dream. It was reality, grounded in trust, patience, and unwavering affection. In that embrace, they understood that forever didn't need grand declarations or dramatic gestures. It was in the quiet hugs, the shared smiles, and the decision to face every challenge side by side. And as the sun rose higher, bathing them in light, Nia and Ethan knew they had everything they had ever wanted: each other.